Hi, I'm Dale Heisman with Peninsula School District Transportation, and this is Becky Brown. We're going to demonstrate the Washington State pre-trip school bus inspection. I will play the part of a third-party tester. We feel it will be more effective in learning the pre-trip if we perform it so it can be learned visually and audibly. Becky, as you conduct your pre-trip inspection, point to or touch each item you are inspecting and tell me what it is and how to inspect it. You only need to inspect one side of the vehicle or for outside items unless something is different or unique from the opposite side. You only need to inspect the first and last axle. When you activate your lights, I will watch to see that they work. Do you have any questions so far?
Nope.
And where would you like to start your pre-trip?
On the bus.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to inspect is my seat belt. I'm going to make sure that there aren't any cuts, that it's not frayed, it's not worn. I'm going to make sure that it's bolted securely to the floor, make sure it's clicked, and it's adjusted properly. Now I'm going to check my lights. I asked my third-party tester to go outside, and he's going to give me the thumbs up when he sees the light. So my right turn signal and my left turn signal, and then my four-way hazards, cancel those. I'm going to do my headlights, and I'm going to do my high beams. I'm going to turn my headlights off. We're going to do ambers and my reds. I'm going to turn those off. He's going to go ahead and go on back to the back of the bus. We start it all over. And my right turn signal and my left turn signal, my four-way hazards, and I'm going to turn my headlights on. It goes for the tail lights. I'm going to do my brake lights, and then I'm going to turn my ambers on and my reds on, and then I'm going to open the door, and on my way out I'm checking to make sure that the door light is illuminated as well, and we're going to go ahead and go out and start walking around the bus. So the first thing I'm going to inspect on the outside here is the door. I'm going to make sure my hinges are secure and my seal's intact. I'm just going to move around the bus, make sure that all of my mirrors are secure, that my crossing arm is fully extended, and that it's secure, no loose parts. I'm going to look at my windshield wipers, make sure that they're nice and pliable, secure again, no missing or loose nuts or bolts. I'm going to be looking at all my lenses. They need to be clean. They can't be cracked or missing. We're going to look at all of the reflectors, and on the front of the bus and the sides of the bus, they're amber, and then on the rear of the bus, they're red. Moving along. We're going to look at our reflective tape, and the reflective tape needs to be secure, it can't be peeling up, and it needs to be clean. All right? We're going to move around to the stop paddle, and the stop paddle needs to be working properly with the lights. It needs to fully extend, and it can't have any loose or parts or missing bolts. So here on the front axle, we need to have 4/32 of an inch of tread depth, and the tread needs to be evenly worn. The side wall cannot have any cuts or abrasions. The bead flange has to be smooth, not damaged, no dents. The rim also smooth, no cracks, no welds. The lug nuts have to be securely tied on there. No shiny threads, no rust trails, no elongated holes. All right, and then your axle seal needs to be sealed up with no leak in oil, and you need to make sure that there's an adequate amount of oil in there. You also need to check your mud flaps. The mud flaps need to be secure. They can't be worn or torn, and they need to extend down at least to the center of the axle. Now on our way to the rear axle, we're going to be checking all of our reflectors and lights, handles, making sure everything is secure along the way. So here on the rear axle, there's a few things different. You need to make sure you only have 30 seconds of a tread. You need to have at least that. You need to take your trusty hammer and sweep between the duals, making sure that there's nothing lodged. You need to look and make sure there's an additional valve stem in the back. Now on these valve stems, again, you're looking to make sure they're not damaged, they're not broken, they're not bent, they're there. And that is our rear axle. All right, here on the rear axle, we're going to be looking for a few different things. You need 30 seconds of an inch of tread depth on the rear tires. You need to take your hammer and you need to check and sweep between the duals and make sure that there's nothing lodged. So you're going to check your tire valve stems, and on the, you need to make sure you've got your second one here as well. They both need to be straight, they can't be broken, and they need to be present. Also, you need to make sure that you check your air pressure with a tire gauge. And now we're going to keep moving around the bus and looking at everything else. So here on the back, we're just going to make sure that all of our lenses are clean, they're secure. We're going to check our reflective tape. Again, make sure that it is secure, not peeling, and clean. We're going to check our emergency exit and make sure that is secure as well. So here we're going to check and make sure all of our compartments and doors are secure. We're going to make sure that nothing is coming out. We're going to check our fuel. We're going to make sure the cap's on tightly, no sign of leaking. I'm going to talk about the tank as well. The tank itself is secure. There's no leaks or holes in the tank. And also check our last little reflector. Getting on the bus again.
Okay, Becky, now we're going to do the air supply system. We're going to inspect the air supply system for the air brakes. You need to make 3 different checks. Tell me what you are checking and how you are checking each item, and be specific, and you may begin.
Alright, so my engine is off, my accessory key is on, my foot is on the service brake. I'm going to take the parking brake off, and I am going to check for leaks in the system by making sure that in 1 minute the PSI doesn't drop more than 3 PSI in that first minute. And then it didn't drop more than 3 PSI in the first minute. So now I'm going to pump the brakes, and I'm going to make sure that the alarm comes on, indicating we have low air pressure by 60 PSI. There it goes. At about 65 PSI, it went on. So now I'm going to pump the brakes again, and the parking brake will pop on, and it should do that between 20 and 45 PSI. There it goes, and that is at 25 PSI. So now I'm going to do a safety start. So the parking brake's on, the bus is in neutral. I'm making sure that the green light is out, and I'm going to turn her on. And as it turned on, I was checking and making sure that the ABS light went on and went off again. That indicates that that system is working properly. So while the air pressure is building, I'm going to be looking to make sure that the air governor cuts out between 100 and 125 psi, but I'm going to be doing some sweeps while we do that. So the first thing I'm going to look at is that my indicator lights on my dash are working. So my right turn signal works, my left turn signal works, my four-way hazard works, and my high beams, if my lights are on, works. And then I am going to test my heaters and fans one at a time and make sure that defroster works. I am going to look at all of my glass. So I'm going to look at my mirrors. I've got 7 of them, and they all need to be adjusted properly. They can't be missing any nuts or bolts, no cracks. They have to be clean. And then I'm going to check all of my windows, all of my glass. So the glass can't have any illegal stickers on it. They have to be clean, no cracks. And then my windshield wipers, I'm going to make sure that they are working properly and that they're all juiced up. They have fluid in them as well. So that was my glass sweep, my indicator light sweep, and my heaters and fans sweep. And now I'm going to look at my gauges. And one of the things I'm looking for here is my air supply. And my air supply is working if it's building pressure. Now my fuel, I want to make sure I have an adequate amount of fuel. My temperature gauge, it needs to be within a safe operating level. And my oil pressure gauge needs to be building. My ammeter needs to be within proper operating levels. And my voltmeter also needs to be at a proper operating level. And just going to listen for that air governor to cut out. Any minute now. Wait for it. There. That was my air governor cutting out. And so I did my four sweeps. And now I'm going to check my horn, and I am going to do my other brake tests. So I'm going to shut my door. And then I am going to first test my parking brake. So to do that, I have my parking brake on. I put the service brake on, and I put it in drive. After I have my seatbelt on, of course. And I'm going to put it in drive, and we are going to take the service brake off, put a little bit of gas on, and it shouldn't go anywhere. And it didn't. So now we're going to test the service brake. So I'm going to release the parking brake. And to do this, we're just going to move forward just a little bit and stop. And that's that. So parking brake back on, bus in neutral, and I'm going to turn the bus off now, and we are going to go ahead and talk about our 3 E's. So now we're going to check our entry. First thing on the entry is the door, making sure that it opens and closes smoothly. Make sure that's working properly. And then in the entryway itself, we're going to be looking to make sure that the tread is secure, it's in good condition, that the steps are clear. We're going to make sure the handrail is secure as well. And then we're going to look at our emergency equipment. And we've got our fire extinguisher, and it needs to be charged, and it needs to be properly rated, and it needs to be secure. We're going to check our first aid kit and make sure that it is sealed and fully stocked. We're going to make sure the body fluid kit is complete as well. We're going to check for fuses if it's a bus with fuses. This one doesn't have any, so we just have circuit breakers. And then we also need to check our 3 reflective triangles. And so for our third E, which is our emergency exits, we need to make sure that our accessory key is on. All right, so here we go. So as we go back to check our emergency exits, we need to make sure that our seat bottoms are secure. At our emergency exits, all of the emergency exits need to be properly labeled. Now, some of the emergency exits have black around the edges, and those are kick out. You can just go ahead and kick them out. Not my first recommendation for kids, but it's doable. And then you also have the main entry, which is always an emergency exit. And you have our roof hatches. We have 2 of them on this bus. And then we have 2 side doors, emergency exit doors. Now, I'm going to open this in a second. Alarm's going to go off. I'm going to be checking to make sure that the hinges are secure, they work properly. When it goes open, it should stay open, and then I should also still be able to close it. And the gasket seal, that also needs to be intact. So I'm going to go ahead and open it. So that's how those guys work. So now moving back the bus, we want to make sure that the emergency exit door seats will come back up when you push down on them. All the rest of the seats here. Check this guy, this guy. And then on the way back, we check the backs of all the seats and we make sure that those work, they're secure. That's how you're going to find out whether or not the seats are securely fastened to the floor. Here we have one of our roof hatches. Now it's vented right now, and it's set to latched, but if you'd like to use it as an exit and not a vent, you need to switch it to exit. You push up, and then you kind of pop just that part up, and then get it right lined up to shut it again. Note the alarm went off, and then you switch it back to latched and you pop her down. Walking back, we check all the backs of the seats, making sure that they are securely fastened to the floor. And then up front, we turn the key off and we're going to go outside the bus one more time. Here we're going to talk about our steering components. So we're going to talk about the steering box, the steering hoses, the steering links, arms, and rods. So the steering box cannot have any cracks or leaks. It needs to be secure to the frame, no missing or loose nuts or bolts. The steering hoses, they have to be secure. They cannot have any cuts, cracks, they can't have any bulges, and no damage from rubbing against all the other parts in there, okay? And then your steering links, arms, and rods cannot be cracked or worn, and those are connecting the steering wheel to the steering housing, the box. And then the joints and sockets cannot be worn or loose. You can't have any missing or loose nuts, bolts, or cotter keys. Here we go. So here we're going to talk about our front and rear suspension. We use the acronym SMUST. So the first S is springs, and the leaf springs cannot be cracked or shifted or loose or missing, and they can't have any missing nuts or bolts. Then M is our mounts and hangers, and the mounts and hangers cannot be cracked or loose or missing any nuts or bolts. The bushings need to be in good condition, and the U is for U-bolts. And the U-bolts cannot be missing, they need to be present, not cracked or damaged, and they can't have any missing or loose nuts or bolts. The second S is the shock absorbers. The shock absorbers, they need to be secure to the frame and they can't be leaking, no missing or loose nuts or bolts. And then T, it stands for torque arm. It's only in the back, and the torque arm must be secure to the frame. It can't be missing any nuts or bolts, and it needs to be in good condition. So here we're going to use these 3 windows to talk about the brakes, okay? So we're going to talk about the brake chambers. And the brake chamber, it needs to be secure, no missing or loose nuts, bolts, or clamps, and it can't have any dents and it can't be leaking. All right, second window is our LDS. The linings need to be at least 1/4 of an inch thick. They can't have any cracks or damage, no missing or loose nuts or bolts, and no signs of oil or grease. The drums, no dents, no grooves, no holes, also no signs of oil and grease. Then the S, that's the slack adjusters. Now the slack adjusters, also no missing or loose nuts or bolts. And then when you release the brakes, they cannot move more than 1 inch. And then we get to talk about our hoses, our brake hoses. Now hoses, just like all the hoses, no cracks in the hoses, no bulges, they can't be rubbing anywhere, and they can't be leaking, no cuts, standard hose stuff. Make sure the clamps are all secure and the fittings are all set. So now we're going to inspect the engine compartment. So we got to pop this guy open. Here we go. Holy moly. So here in the engine compartment, we use the AABC POW acronym. So the first A is the air compressor. Now you make sure the air compressor is secure, and that's it. All right, now the alternator right here, we make sure that there's no signs of overheating, that the wires aren't burned, that it's secure to the engine, and that it's not missing any nuts or bolts. And then we're going to check B. B is the belt. So we're going to check the belt and make sure that it doesn't have any signs of excessive wear, no fraying. When you press in the middle, it can't deflect more than 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. C is coolant. The coolant, you're going to look through the sight gauge and make sure that it's at a proper operating level. You're never ever going to open up the cap if it's hot, been recently run, you're not sure, okay? So that's coolant. Then we go to P, power steering fluid, okay? So this is the power steering fluid. You're going to make sure that it's at a proper operating level. And then oil, you're going to check to make sure also that that is at a proper operating level. And then your W, your water pump, right here, this kind of triangular shaped object, it needs to be secure. You don't want there to be any signs of leaking, such as rust, and not missing any nuts or bolts. So that is your engine compartment. Now you want to check, you want to do this over-under thing. So you do an overview of everything. You want to make sure that all your hoses are connected, every little bit is in good shape, and nothing's just sort of hanging loose, and all of your hoses are in good condition. Now then you check the underside of the engine compartment and you're looking for your leaks. You want to look for oil leaks, water leaks, fuel leaks. You don't want anything puddling under the ground or on the underside of your engine or transmission. So that is the engine compartment. And then you want to check your DEF. Now, your DEF, that sounds like fuel, but it's the acronym we use for our drive shaft, our exhaust, and our frame. So the drive shaft needs to be straight. It can't have any foreign objects lodged in it, and it needs to be secure. So then you're going to check your E, its exhaust, and it needs to be secure to the frame. All of those junctions really need to be sealed up. You don't want there to be any signs of leaking, no holes, no soot from carbon. All right, so that's your exhaust. And then your frame. Your frame, it can't be missing any nuts or bolts. It needs to be secure. It can't have any welds in it, no cracks in your frame, of course, and also in the cross members, no cracks or welds. And that's the pre-trip.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
I don't think so. No, there's nothing else that I want to add.
Okay, and that concludes our pre-trip school bus inspection.
Did I pass?